Writing and delivering a eulogy for a loved one can be one of the hardest things to do. Today I'm going to give you some advice from my perspective to help you to honour your loved one. Hi, my name's Dan Beasley and I'm a vicar in the Church of England, and part of my role is to take funerals, and in taking funerals go to visit the family, and we speak about what's happened, we speak about their grief, we speak about many things, we speak about the order of service that needs to be created for the service, we speak about the service structure and how that looks. But one of the things that people find quite difficult sometimes is the eulogy, what needs to be included in it and how it should be delivered and who should deliver it. Today I'm going to give you some advice and some hints and tips from my point of view of taking the services of how eulogies should be written and delivered. So obviously in my role I've taken a lot of funerals, whether they've been in a crematorium or a church, and I've heard a lot of eulogies. I've also read a lot of eulogies, quite rightly on behalf of the family. When the grief is too much and they need to grieve, they'll ask me to read a eulogy, and in those circumstances I'll ask for the eulogy at least the day before, so I can read through it and get to understand the person and understand what's being written, so I can deliver it in a way that isn't wooden and just read. I don't think there could be anything worse, that I can bring out the emphasis and I can put in the pauses where there need to be pauses, and if there's something that's funny, to see that as well, so I know when that's coming. Delivery is hugely important, but I think the first question we need to understand is, what is a eulogy for? A eulogy basically is bringing the person's life to the hearers who are there. Now there's going to be people who have known the loved one who's died their whole life. There's people who are going to be knowing them only for a short part of their life, and what the eulogy is designed to do is to talk about that life, and this is a hugely important thing. It's a life that's been lived, and this needs to come across from the start to the end, all the good things and even the bad things. I don't think in eulogies we should take things out. I think they should be acknowledged. So if there was something like a divorce or something like that, and I think they should be included because it becomes part of that person's life. Everybody knows it, and if it's not in there, people will think, well, why didn't they include that? It becomes political, and actually I think just acknowledging those things and moving on is acknowledging that this person lived a life. Life is messy, and this happened. Doesn't need to be dwelt on, but a life is to be heard, whether it's the good and the bad. So don't take out the bad for reasons of trying to please people in the congregation, where a eulogy is to speak about the life of the person who is deceased and to speak to people who are there and remind them of that, whether they know them all their lives or a short part of their lives. And I'm on the end of that. I've never known the person. So when I've heard a eulogy written and delivered well, or written and I've had to deliver it, when I get to hear about the person and know the person, when I smile or when I laugh, it's really pleasing to me, because I don't know this person who has died. I've only just come into their lives, as it were. I'm performing a final task for them and honouring them in their death and in their funeral. And it's really nice for me to hear this person's life, that in a sense that you hear the fullness of their life. You don't kind of, in a sense, get shortchanged with just bits, and it's very factual with no emotion there. And I think that's what a eulogy should really do, is to speak about the person's life all the way through, and that's from the heart. There's websites out there speak about the technical things and how you should write it and things. I think eulogies should be, to be honest, just from the heart, that make people smile, that make people laugh, that make people remember, that make them to bring back those memories of when they once knew them, or if they didn't once know them at that point, that they think, oh, I could see that happening because I knew them later, and they were like that all the way through their lives. They, that when the people say they never change, you could see, oh, he did that when he was 23, or she did that when she was 38, and yet I knew them only after they were 60, and obviously they were the same all their life. It's bringing a life that's lived out and showing the personality of the person. And even if it's bad, because if someone's got a personality trait, and they would say, my mother's tongue, what it was like, it's so quick and should be on it or shout at you. And if that was what everyone remembered, that's a good thing, because even though it might be seen as negative, because that's who the person was. We are all messed up, broken people. So don't just put the rose-tinted glasses on sometimes. Actually, the negative things can be quite endearing to some people. So letting that lived life come out, the good, the bad and the ugly, I think is hugely, hugely important. Don't dwell on the bad things. Don't make the bad things like get up there or to make a point. But if that is part of who the person is, I think it's hugely important to recognise that and to talk about that. So like I said, go through their whole life on when they were born, where they were born, major events that happened, where they moved, things they've done, because that is who they are, and you are remembering them and what they achieved in this life. Like I said, a lot of people might not know these things, and it'd be interesting for them to hear. And some stories as well. Stories, I think, are always great, especially really lovely stories of memories, of fond memories. And so when you're going to write a eulogy, ask people around, are there any stories that you can remember that would be perfect for the eulogy? Remember, one person doesn't need to write this. I think it's great that you can get a few people to write memories down. Not long, don't get overruled by lots of pieces of email or letters coming in that you've got too much to do. You're in a time of grief. But just maybe asking people, what's your favourite memory of the loved one? And so you can include those stories, because it might be that at one point just after, say it was a husband who died, and they moved when they were 25 with his wife to a new house, and his brother says, I remember this memory when we first moved and we was moving in and blah blah. You can include that historical event in their life with this story, and this funny story that was told by the deceased brother. And so you're building up a picture. So you're not only saying when they moved to Halzoin, on the day they moved, blah blah blah, they couldn't get a van, or the van broke down, and then they had to carry things like half a mile down the road because blah blah blah. Whatever the story is, to include that. So ask people around for stories and to bring that in. I think that's hugely important. Again, it's building up that picture of a life that is lived, and that's hugely important. I love hearing those things, because it's like I'm getting to know that person, the person that I would never know. When I smile during eulogies, it's like because I'm doing a role and I'm in this person's life who I never met. It's really nice when I get to hear about that life, and then I feel like some connection with that person rather than I've never met them. It's a strange thing being on this side, but it's nice to feel a connection through hearing about their life through the eulogy. And it's the warmth, and it's the jokes, and it's bringing out the good, the bad and the ugly in a way that is honouring to the one that has passed. So from my perspective as a vicar, sitting there hearing them and delivering them, eulogies really aren't that hard. They are hard because you're being asked to write them in a time of grief and deliver them in a time of grief. So just keep it simple. Go through the loved one's life from start to finish, including the major points in their life, points of interest, funny stories, the good, but the bad and the ugly, but delivered in a way that is endearing to them, if that was part of their personality and everybody knew that. Bring that lived life out. However long they've been on this earth, their life has been lived, and it's been lived full of fun, laughter, anger, sadness, grief, all these. And I think it's important to bring those out because the eulogy is there to help people to grieve as well as to remember that person's life and remember them with fondness. And that's what the eulogy will do, whether they know them all their life or just a few years. It's and like I said, from my perspective, when I smile, I feel a connection to that person who has passed. I feel that I've got to know them in some way, And that's really nice, bringing that out. And that actually helps all those who come to the funeral service to hear those words. Eulogies can be a really difficult thing to write, so just keep it simple. They don't need to be long, they just need to be done from the heart and with love, and to honour the person who has passed.